A pivot table is perhaps Microsoft Excel's best feature. Now, the power of pivots really lies in being able to answer many different questions by just dragging and dropping fields in different areas. So let's first look at this very small data set we have. I'll just turn this on here. What we've got product, month, sales price, units sold. Only a very few number of rows. But technically you could have hundreds or thousands of rows, and to go in here and to answer questions like, for example, units sold per month. I mean, we can look at this. It's sorted by month and add 15 and 11 together, 18 and 12 for February, and keep going down the list. 10 and 16 together is 26 for March. Or maybe we want to get the average of the sales price per product. There's many different questions that we could answer. You could use formulas, sum if or a sum product, to get that. But a really quick way is to create a pivot. So let me show you how that's done. How do I create one? So first step, select the range of data that you want to create a pivot for, that you want to summarize. Because that's what pivots do, they summarize your data. So we select this range, and that's the first step. Second step, insert pivot table. So here on the ribbon, click insert, and then pivot table. And all we've already selected the range, so Excel knows the range that we want to work with. The other question here is, where do we want to put this pivot? Typically you would just stick with new worksheet, and it creates a new worksheet down here with your pivot. This time I'm going to say existing worksheet, just so we have everything together here, so it's easier to see the raw data with our pivot table. And in this little drop down here, I'm going to just click on that, and then I'm just going to select this cell, go back to here, and I'm going to press the OK button. So right now, just a couple of things you may have noticed. We've got this area here that's saying choose fields from the pivot table field list. The field list is over here on the right hand side. So you see these little buttons here. If I click field list, it's gone. If I click it again, there's the field list. You'll notice up here all the 4 fields that came from this data area. So they're all represented in here. So let's just experiment. Let's say we want to summarize, we want to get the total number of units sold per month. So I'm just going to come up here. I'm going to click on month. I'm going to drag and drop. This is the way I like to do it. Drag and drop it into the row label area. So there we go. So far, all we have here is one row for each unique month in here. So instead of having each month twice, we have each month one time. That's what happens when you take something from up here and drop it in the row label area. You get a unique list. So let's take this one out. I'm just going to click on this, drag it back to this area, and release the left mouse button. Let's take product. Take this, drag and drop it into the row label area. Now we're only getting 2 things. Well, why is that? Out of all these options, there's only 2 unique products, X2 and W9. So we only have 2 unique items there. So far we haven't really done any math. We just have a unique list. Let's take this out again and put the month in. So one thing I had mentioned, I believe, was units sold per month. So to do that, let's take the units sold, and we're going to drag and drop it into this bottom right part that says values. That's where we do math. Drop it in there, and look how it defaults to sum of units. It even says that here. Here our field name is units sold, but now it's saying sum of units sold. When all the values in these cells are numbers, Excel guesses and it defaults to summing or adding up the numbers. So before I was showing you that for January we had a 15 and 11, add them together, here's our 26. For February we had 2 numbers, 18 and 12, 30, 10 plus 16, 26, and all the way down. So it's a very quick way. I mean, imagine we could, if we had 10,000 rows. A pivot table is a very quick and very easy way to do this. Now, you might have another question, and you might say, well, okay, so this is adding up these different things here. I want to get a count of the different things. Well, all we have to do is take this same field, units sold, drag and drop it a second time into this bottom right area, and right now it says the exact same thing. But I can come over here, and in this little drop down, I click that, I click Value Field Settings, and I just change the sum to a count. Click the OK button, and it's counting 2 for each one of them, which is what we wanted. We could also, let's try one more thing. We could take sales price. Take this one. We'll drag and drop it into here, and as you can imagine, it defaults to sum because they're all numbers. But what if we wanted to get an average of the sales price? So we'll come over here, and in the drop down, Value Field Settings, change that to average. So look at that, it instantly changed it. Now we have the average. So for February we had a 5 and a 3. If you add them up, it equals 8, and divide by 2, which is the count, you get 4. So a very quick way to get a lot of different answers to some questions. What if someone then says, okay, that's great, but I don't really want to see all of these things summarized by month. I want to see it summarized by product. So here we have our product. Fair enough. We'll come over here, remove month, and now we're going to take product. Take this one, drag and drop it into this area. So now it instantly changes. Sometimes you have to refresh it by clicking somewhere within the pivot, and then either a right click and you see where it says refresh, or up here and click on the refresh button. Because if we make a change to something over here, let's make a really big change, it's pretty obvious. Let's change this 3 to 77, enter. Well, our pivot, nothing has changed. That's kind of strange, right? Let's also go down to X2 and change that to 300 and enter. In order to refresh the pivot table, we have to click inside the pivot, right click, and refresh. Now watch how this is all going to change. These have changed. So this part didn't change because this is looking at units sold. This part's also looking at units sold, but here we have the sales price, and it definitely changed. If I were to come here and say we sold 200, click enter, click anywhere within the pivot, right click, and refresh, then you'll see how this also changes. So pivots are very powerful, extremely useful. Once you get used to them, you'll be using them, you'll never stop. And I'll create some more videos. There's many, many more options when you look up here. There's just tons of different things that you can do. But to start off with the basics, you just have to select the data, go up here and click Insert, Pivot. You walk through this, you press OK, and then you add your fields and move things around.